Hello everybody, Rich Tarrant here in Vermilion. I atop the Vermilion History Museum, train going by as usual. Nothing new in Vermilion. What I'm going to do today is do an old podcast that I did. It's 15 years ago that I did. I think it was 2007 that I made it. And this time I have a photograph that I'll use with it that I didn't when I originally made the audio podcast. And what I want to point out to you, and the reason for this preface talk, is to tell you that a lot of the businesses that you'll hear me talk about on the podcast are no longer there. The buildings might be there, but the businesses have changed over that 15-year period. It's quite noticeable. It shows that businesses change in town quite frequently. With that, I'll just go ahead with the podcast.
Hello everybody, this is Rich Tarrant, your friendly podcaster, talking to you from sunny Vermilion, Ohio. The weather's not as cold as it has been, and it's getting better. This week I'm going to try something a little different. The podcast is going to be just a bit longer. I've got some new software and things like that I want to try out. I'm going to be using music. I don't know in what capacity, maybe in the background, and maybe I'll be using it just to see how things work with this. Well, I guess I'm going to start off here by reading a story that I wrote here a couple of weeks ago. It appeared in the Vermilion Photojournal on January 25th. The picture is contained on the page. I'm sorry I can't have it here as you're listening to this cast, but I haven't figured that one out yet. This one was headlined Life on Water Street circa 1930. I can't remember if I titled it that at the time or not. Doesn't matter, I guess. In the early 1930s, a great drought struck an area of America's Great Plains. Lasting for a full 7 years, great dust storms swept through parts of Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas, vitiating roughly 50 million acres of land. One of the most dramatic results of this catastrophe was the mass migration of bankrupt and disillusioned farm families from the region that came to be known as the Dust Bowl. Author John Steinbeck's novel, The Grapes of Wrath, 1939, offers a fictional but very accurate account of the trials and tribulations of those who struggled through this period of American history. In the meantime, 1,000 miles northeast of the disaster that was unfolding in the plains during the 30s, life in the handsome hamlet of Vermilion, Ohio, was neither catastrophic nor exceptionally trying. These shadows, freezing actions of but a moment of a splendid summer day along Water Street, which is West River Road, and Liberty Avenue are extremely palpable reminders of that yesteryear. The photograph was taken from the site that is now known as Vermilion's Rotary Centennial Park, near the city's retired water tower, looking northeast toward Liberty Avenue, or northwest towards Liberty Avenue. The buildings in the background should be immediately familiar to most Vermilionites. One is now the Central Basin Bait and Tackle, or Joe's Taxidermy Shop, and the other is the Freeman Eckley Incorporated Yacht Sales. In those days, one or both of the buildings probably housed subsidiary businesses owned by local entrepreneur Warren G. Smitty Smith. The automobile in the foreground is very likely yielding the right-of-way to an oncoming Lakeshore Electric trolley before crossing the tracks and moving eastward toward the old Vermilion River Bridge that ran parallel to the electric bridge that once spanned the river. Near the corner, just to the right of the trolley, an old ice house is just barely visible. It sat near the building that is now the home of Alan Thorley Deloitte Insurance Agency, at the apex of Liberty Avenue and West River Road. Hidden beneath the verdurous shade of the trees to the right of the photo is a house of substantial size that long ago faded from the landscape. Folks who look over the area today will find it difficult to believe that any house, much less a large house, could have stood on that site, but it did. During this decade, there was a great deal of new construction about town. In March of 1935, Beulah Beach contractor E. E. Kuntz completed construction of Frank E. Baker's new Ford garage. That property currently houses Vermilion's ever-popular convenience store, Convenient Food Mart. At Vermilion on the Lake, 6 cottages or homes were being built. Among them was one for a fellow by the name of Biner on the corner of Essex and Edgewater. In the neighboring Sunnyside area, local resident John Kavanik was building a small cottage to temporarily house his family while he built a new home to replace the one that had earlier been destroyed by fire. In the Vermilion Lagoons, D.J. Miller was busy building a new home for summer resident R.H. Watts. At the Lion Camp, stop 141 on West Shore or Lake Road, a new cottage, number 7, was being added to the camp. Vermilion's mayor, J.A. Burke, was asking a committee to consider plans to rebuild and expand the public comfort station into a new municipal building. In addition to the bar room at the Olympic Outing Club was being made. At Ray Miller's hardware store, now Winterstein Realty, new space was being added to accommodate a new liquor store. And last but hardly least, on Saturday, October 19, 1935, Vermilion's new public library, currently Circuit Designs Incorporated, near the railroad tracks on Grand Street, formally opened for business. And so life on Water Street, circa 1930, moved along directly after this photo was taken. Folks were not entirely oblivious to the calamities of their fellow Americans whose fortunes were being lost in the dust of the Great Plains. But they were exceptionally grateful for their good fortunes on that summer day, and also the next. Moving along, I get an email newspaper called the Daily Perspective every day in my email. This is a collection of historical headlines from newspapers all over the United States, so obviously they're different every day. This one I got today, which is February 9th, is from February 9th, 1924. It's from the Nevada State Journal. The headline reads, "First lethal gas execution takes place." Convicted murderer G. John was executed with lethal gas at the Nevada State Prison today. It was the first time gas was used for capital punishment in the United States. G. John nodded and went to sleep. It was as simple and humane as that. Those who witnessed the execution are agreed that never was man put to death as painlessly. An article in the Nevada State Journal read on February 9, 1924, "The execution today ended an international argument over the wisdom of the law extracting payment by means of lethal gas, and Nevada won her contention. However, in the opinion of Warden Dickerson, as quoted in the Nevada State Journal, the execution was a success, but the method of application is dangerous. A crowd of witnesses, which included journalists, were allowed to view the execution through a window. Yet, as soon as the gas was turned on, the spectators could smell fumes that leaked out." These are a few more headlines that appeared on February 9th over the years in that newspaper. Senate selects Richard Johnson as vice president in 1837. In 1910, Boy Scouts of America is incorporated. In 1960, Queen Elizabeth II declares new family name. In 1973, Senate approves Watergate investigation. And in 1999, world dignitaries attend King Hussein's funeral. I think to wind it up this week, I want to explain some of the music that you've heard, the Stars and Stripes Forever, that you heard at the beginning and you will hear at the end of this. The music is from a digital recording I made from an RCA Victor record 78, cost $1.25, that I got from Larry Howell probably a year or so ago. It belonged to his parents. It is, of course, the Stars and Stripes Forever March. The real significant thing about this is that it's done by the Sousa Band. It probably is from a range of time from about 1910 to 1920. Real interesting. It came out pretty good. Well, I apologize for such a disjointed, kind of crazy podcast this week, but I'm just learning the technology, and hopefully it'll get better as we go along. Well, I'll talk to you next week. Stay warm and stay happy.